Kael arrived at the Helios Atmospheric Research Corporation at exactly 8:37 in the morning, 23 minutes early. Punctual, ordinary, forgettable. That was intentional. The Helios headquarters stood among the tallest structures in New Tianjing's science district, a vast tower of silver glass, layered sky bridges, and atmospheric monitoring arrays. Hundreds of employees streamed through the security gates. Autonomous vehicles arrived and departed without pause. Corporate drones moved between the upper floors, carrying equipment and sealed research containers. Kael joined the crowd. Today, he wore the clothes expected of an ordinary research intern: a clean light gray shirt, dark trousers, simple shoes, and an identification badge clipped near his chest. Nothing tactical, nothing memorable. Nobody looked at him twice, which was exactly how he preferred it. In his previous lives, Kael had made many mistakes. One of the worst was attracting attention too early. People feared what they could not understand. A young man claiming the world would end in 7 days attracted the wrong kind of attention. Governments investigated him. Corporations monitored him. Security agencies followed him. Sometimes they imprisoned him. Sometimes they tried to use what he knew. Other times, they simply dismissed him as insane. The outcome never changed. Failure. This time, Kael would not warn the world. He would not beg anyone to believe him. He would enter Helios as an ordinary intern, observe quietly, gather information, and leave before anyone realized what he was searching for. Kael passed through the final security checkpoint. The system verified his identity. A soft green light appeared above the gate. Access approved. The doors opened. Beyond them waited the polished interior of one of the most powerful research corporations in the world. Kael stepped inside without hesitation. This time, he would remain hidden, at least until it was too late for anyone to stop him. The internship orientation took place on the 87th floor. More than 100 fresh graduates filled the enormous conference hall. Rows of curved seats descended toward a wide stage surrounded by floating presentation screens. Beyond the glass walls, New Tianjing stretched beneath a pale morning sky. A cheerful presenter stepped forward. "Welcome to Helios, the leading atmospheric research organization in Asia." Applause filled the hall. Kael sat near the back and joined in just enough to avoid standing out. His attention was not on the stage. It was on the people around him. Ambitious graduates, young researchers, new employees eager to begin careers they believed would last for decades. Most of them would be dead within 2 weeks. A few would survive the first month. Only one person in the room would remain alive after the first year. And she was not even watching the presentation. 3 rows ahead, a young woman sat beside the window. Long, straight black hair fell neatly past her shoulders. Her complexion was pale beneath the cool light, and her sharp dark eyes remained fixed on the clouds outside. Her expression revealed nothing. Calm, distant, difficult to read. A dark gray Helios uniform framed her lean figure, accompanied by a simple identification badge and the understated blue accents of the analytics division. A tablet rested across her lap. While everyone else listened to corporate promises, she studied a stream of atmospheric data moving across its screen. Her name was Lin Yuxin, 24 years old. Junior atmospheric analyst. Quiet, observant, far more capable than anyone at Helios currently understood. In Kael's 23rd life, she became one of the most important scientists humanity ever produced. In his 31st, she discovered that the atmospheric mutations followed a repeating cycle. That discovery allowed entire settlements to predict monster evolution before it occurred. In his 42nd life, she survived for nearly 8 years, longer than almost anyone in this room. She eventually died during the Battle of the Eastern Wastes. Even then, she had refused to abandon her research. Kael remembered the final reports she transmitted before the settlement fell. Incomplete, damaged. But enough to save thousands. Most importantly, Lin Yuxin possessed information no one else had. Information connected to the celestial object. Information she had never fully explained in any of his previous lives. Kael watched her for several seconds. Yuxin seemed to sense the attention. Her eyes shifted away from the window. For the briefest moment, their gazes met. There was no recognition in hers, only a quiet, analytical assessment of the unfamiliar intern seated behind her. Then she returned to her tablet. Kael lowered his gaze and opened the notebook hidden beneath his orientation materials. Below the 3 names already written there, he added another. Potential recruit, Lin Yuxin. On stage, the presenter continued, corporate values, company policies, career opportunities, future growth. The audience listened with eager expressions. Nobody knew that the future being promised to them would never arrive. At least, not the future they imagined. Eventually, the orientation came to an end. The interns were divided into smaller groups and assigned to different departments throughout the tower. Kael followed 12 other graduates into a secure elevator. The doors closed. Their identification badges were scanned automatically before the elevator began its silent descent through the upper research levels. Nobody spoke. Some interns studied their assignment details. Others adjusted their clothes, eager to make a good first impression. Kael watched the floor numbers change above the door. Department 7. In several previous timelines, that name had appeared in fragmented reports recovered after Helios fell, but he had never entered it himself, not while it was still operational. The elevator stopped. A middle-aged researcher waited beyond the doors. He wore an immaculate dark suit beneath a white research coat. Expensive glasses rested across his face, and a permanent smile made him appear warm and approachable. "Good morning. I'm Director Han, your assigned supervisor." His gaze moved across the group. "Welcome to Department 7. He turned and gestured toward the laboratory behind him. "Our division studies atmospheric anomalies that do not fall within conventional predictive models." Kael's eyes narrowed slightly. "Interesting. Very interesting. In several previous timelines, Department 7 had been among the first Helios divisions sealed by military authorities after the apocalypse began. Researchers were confined inside. All external communications stopped. By the time survivors entered the building, most of the department's records had already been destroyed. Kael had never learned why. Perhaps this life would finally give him the answer. The laboratory was larger than a football field. Hundreds of holographic displays floated above orderly rows of workstations. Massive simulation screens covered entire walls, projecting weather systems, satellite imagery, and atmospheric composition models from around the globe. Scientists moved between the stations, comparing data and issuing instructions to automated research systems. Everything appeared efficient, controlled, normal. But Kael had survived too many endings to trust appearances. His gaze swept across the laboratory, then stopped. One section of the facility had been isolated from the rest. Dark security barriers surrounded its entrance. Multiple scanners monitored everyone who approached, and 2 armed corporate security officers stood beside the sealed doors. Even senior researchers had to provide additional clearance before entering. The other interns barely looked at it. Restricted divisions were common inside corporations like Helios. To them, it was simply another classified research area. To Kael, it was something else. Above the entrance was a small black plaque bearing 2 words, Project Horizon. Kael's heartbeat accelerated. He had seen that name before, in damaged files, in classified military reports, in the final records of settlements that had disappeared without explanation. Project Horizon appeared in one timeline after another, always at the edge of the truth, always beyond his reach. Sometimes Kael died before he could investigate it. Sometimes the relevant records vanished. Sometimes the entire facility was destroyed before he arrived. But every surviving clue pointed toward the same conclusion. Project Horizon knew more about the apocalypse than anyone else. Far more. And this time, Kael was standing directly outside its door. "Intern Lin?" Director Han's voice pulled Kael away from the sealed entrance. Kael turned. "Yes, Director?" The older man held out a thin digital tablet. "We need assistance organizing atmospheric observation reports. Sort them by region, anomaly classification, and projected severity." Kael accepted the device. Simple intern work, normally meaningless. Today it was anything but. The first report opened automatically. A satellite image filled the screen. Most of the Pacific Ocean appeared normal beneath layers of cloud and atmospheric data. But near the center of the image, a vast disturbance was expanding through the upper atmosphere. It was almost invisible. A faint distortion in the cloud formations. A subtle change in atmospheric density. Nothing that would alarm an ordinary researcher. Kael recognized it immediately. The same disturbance had appeared before every apocalypse he remembered. Different timelines, different circumstances, always the same anomaly, always 6 days before the end. Director Han sighed beside him. The media has started making a fuss about it again. Several nearby researchers looked over. One of them laughed. It's probably another solar fluctuation. Or magnetic interference, another said. Nothing serious. Their attention quickly returned to their work. Kael remained silent. In exactly 6 days, the disturbance would become visible to the naked eye, a dark fracture stretching across the sky. By then, governments would begin issuing warnings. Scientists would argue over possible explanations. The public would panic, and it would already be too late. The anomaly was not weather. It was not solar activity. It was the first symptom, the first warning, the first crack in humanity's future. Kael studied the satellite image more closely. The distortion was weaker than he remembered. Smaller. But its shape was unmistakable, a circular pattern expanding outward from a point high above the Pacific. Something was already changing the atmosphere, something the researchers around him could not see, or refused to see. Hours passed. Kael completed each assigned task without drawing attention to himself. He categorized reports, corrected minor errors, transferred files between research databases. All the while, he continued observing Project Horizon. Security around the sealed division never relaxed. Only senior personnel were allowed through. Every researcher who approached underwent multiple identity scans before the doors opened. Kael memorized their faces, their access patterns, the intervals between security rotations. Then someone emerged from the far side of the laboratory. An elderly man with neatly combed silver hair walked toward the restricted entrance. His movements were slow but steady. A dark formal suit was visible beneath his research coat, and a simple metallic cane rested in one hand. Kael stopped breathing. Professor Shen Guowei. He nearly rose from his seat. The old man was supposed to be dead. In most timelines, Professor Shen had disappeared several years before the apocalypse. No public announcement had ever explained what happened. Some claimed he had retired because of declining health. Others believed he had been assassinated. Several conspiracy theories suggested that the government had silenced him after one of his atmospheric studies produced classified results. Kael had never discovered the truth. Yet Professor Shen was here, alive, inside Helios. A senior security officer stepped aside as the professor approached. No identification scan was requested. No clearance check was performed. The sealed doors opened immediately. Professor Shen entered Project Horizon. Then the doors closed behind him. Kael stared at the entrance. A possibility formed in his mind. A disturbing possibility. Perhaps Professor Shen had never disappeared. Perhaps he had simply been removed from public view. Transferred somewhere secret. Somewhere beyond the reach of ordinary records. Somewhere connected to Horizon. At lunchtime, Kael left the Helios headquarters and walked to a nearby cafe. The place was crowded with researchers, office workers, and students from the surrounding science district. Conversations overlapped beneath soft music and the quiet hum of automated servers. Ordinary people, living an ordinary day. Kael selected a table in the far corner where he could see both entrances. He ordered black coffee, removed the paper notebook from his bag, and opened it beneath the table's privacy screen. The survival plan he had written that morning was already outdated. He turned to a fresh page. Updated survival plan. Priority level critical. Investigate Project Horizon. Track Professor Shen. Recruit Chen Wei. Recruit Mei Lian. Secure Warehouse District 9. Kael paused before adding one final note. Possible outcome. Project Horizon may possess pre-apocalypse data unavailable in previous timelines. He stared at the page. His instincts had kept him alive through collapsing cities, monster hordes, and countless betrayals. Now those instincts were screaming. Something had changed. The timeline felt different. Subtle. Almost invisible. But undeniably different. His previous rebirths had always followed familiar patterns. Events shifted when he interfered. People survived longer. Some disasters occurred earlier. Others happened later. But the world itself remained consistent. This time, it did not. Professor Shen was alive. Project Horizon was active. The Pacific anomaly was weaker than Kael remembered. Small differences, each one harmless on its own. Together, they formed a warning. And when the timeline changed, danger increased. A notification appeared on Kael's communicator. Unknown sender. His eyes narrowed. Very few people possessed his private contact information. He opened the message. 6 words appeared on the screen. You remembered this time too? Kael stopped breathing. For several seconds, the cafe disappeared from his awareness. The conversations, the music, the movement around him. All of it faded. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Nobody else should know. Nobody else should remember. Across countless lives and countless deaths, Kael had never encountered another reborn survivor. Never. Not once. Yet someone had contacted him as though they had been waiting for his return. His fingers tightened around the communicator. A second message appeared. Don't investigate Horizon alone. Before Kael could respond, a third followed. They are already watching you. Kael stood immediately. His chair struck the floor behind him. Every survival instinct he possessed erupted at once. His gaze swept across the cafe. Customers seated beside the windows. Researchers eating lunch, students speaking over drinks, office workers staring at their devices. Normal people, or so they appeared. Nobody reacted to him. Nobody looked away too quickly. Nobody reached for a weapon. That meant nothing. The person watching him had already proven they knew how to remain hidden. Kael turned slowly, studying every face. Somewhere inside the cafe, someone knew. Someone remembered. And someone had just changed everything. Outside, dark clouds gathered over New Tianjing. Far above the city, beyond the reach of ordinary sight, a faint streak of crimson light crossed the upper atmosphere. No one noticed. Except Kael. And perhaps whoever had sent the message.